Since the E3 lays already some weeks in the past, remembering all the highlights can certainly be challenging. Every year the big fishes of the branch show us how we should invest our money and time. It is usually a Fallout, some Last of Us, or a long-awaited Kojima game, just to name a few. Those titles will be remembered collectively for sure, yet more for their large media presence than for their individual brilliance. What lasts longer are games that convey a feeling in the audience. Typically, smaller developers provide these rare gems, like MoonGameStudios for example. Ori and the Will of the Wisps is their newest creation. Let us dive into this modern-day fairy tale and discover why it is pure art, and finally, although the sequel is not even released yet, why you can expect another installment of Ori in the upcoming years. Ori and the Blind Forest, as well as Ori and the Will of the Wisps, both refer to what we call modern fairy tales. Although they are presented to us gamers as interactive software, their very core resembles classic fairy tales in three major categories: structure, symbolism, and moral strategy. Starting with the structure, Ori had to separate itself from home to encounter the many dangers in the Blind Forest. Within a state of liminality, the little ghost has then to succeed these dark forces, symbolized by the old Kuro. In the following phase of integration, Ori arises as the savior of the forest, even befriending the evil. What Ori and the Blind Forest shows us here is the basic structure of a fairy tale, demonstrated by Arnold von Gennep's 1909 Rites of Passage. The symbolism in the game, in turn, has likewise been established by MoonGameStudios as a clear reference to classic fairy tales. The beings Ori encounters throughout the game function almost similar to those we know from, for example, Little Red Riding Hood. The big bad wolf interacts like a human and has a moral agenda despite looking like an animal. Ori is full of such mythical creatures, from Kuro the owl to the motherly Naru, or the fiendish Gumo. All these creatures are visually close to their natural representations, yet possess supernatural skill sets and emotions, like sadness, love, and compassion. The moral strategy of the game is clear. With positive actions and a spark of hope, the light succeeds the dark, or even awakes the good in our evil opponents. Ori convinces both Gumo and Kuro to do good in the end, a theme that is commonly used in modern media. For instance in Star Wars, where Luke's actions and light side focus succeed the darkness of his father Anakin in the end.
Just for once, let me look on you with my own eyes.
With Ori and the Will of the Wisps, MoonGameStudios establishes a sequel to the already brilliant first game. This episode resembles the second stage of a fairy tale itself, and here is why. Ori and the Blind Forest did not only engage the player into the story, it showed how fragile the realms of light are. To succeed, Ori had to separate from the known environment and explore a world full of danger and fear, just like Red Riding Hood had to travel through the woods, or Pinocchio leaving home. By defeating Kuro and saving his newborn, now Ori's friend, the world is restored to health. So with the first installment of Ori, the player had to experience separation from the light in order to understand its value to life. The Will of the Wisps follows a similar structure. After the player is initiated through this separation, unknown forces yet again disturb the harmony of the forest, growing from the dark. But now there is friendship, a family and unity to fight against it. The trailer conveys these emotions very clearly, and hope is not a part of this footage anymore. Ori and its friends are in a limbo, in between fighting evil and looking desperately for a solution to the chaos. Ori and the Will of the Wisps takes place right in this state of liminality, where there is no immediate help or solution to the forest's problems. From there on, sinister settings remain in the producer's focus, and their trailers show death and fire. But the player already knows what he had to learn to overcome the state of liminality. It is the belief in the light, the hope for a better future that provides a solution to the dangers of Will of the Wisps. Compared to the function of the second stage of fairy tales, Ori and the Will of the Wisps embodies this second stage. What is left to say has not even been revealed to this date. Expect MoonGameStudios to build yet another installment of Ori and its friends to release approximately in another 3 to 4 years. Why? Because their very own fairy tale won't be complete with Ori and the Will of the Wisps. It needs the third and therefore last stage of the fairy tale to end what has started in the Blind Forest. This stage, called integration, gives the protagonists of fairy tales a new and refreshed perspective on the world they left behind in the first stage. Modern fairy tales teach us these modified perceptions. When Frodo returns home, he's not the same person who left to destroy the ring.
How do you pick up the threads of an old life? How do you go on when in your heart you begin to understand? There is no going back.
Skywalker returns as a different man as well, and with him, the galaxy has changed considerably. And for the completion of the fairy tale, Ori has to pass through this scheme as well. As a result, Ori's last task will be a daunting one. But with the gathered hope of the Blind Forest and the friends and family of the Will of the Wisps, the glowing spirit will most likely succeed, just like Skywalker and Frodo did in their respective tales. Lastly, you should expect another brilliantly designed piece of art from MoonGameStudios after Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Since this channel is more of a discussion, feel free to join and give us your take on what Ori means to you, fellow gamers. This is Pat from GCTV. See you in our next video.